Counter-Strike is one of the most beloved franchises of all time. Counter-Strike 1.6 birthed a passionate community for tactical shooters at a competitive level. It certainly wasn't a franchise without its misses or controversial games either. Condition Zero was basically ignored, Source divided the competitive and casual community, and CSGO at launch was certainly a game. However, over time, CSGO became better and better with updates to it, eventually becoming one of the most popular and critically acclaimed esports, tactical shooters, FPSs, hell, games of all time. While it was ultimately a great game, it was a game that was starting to show its age. Hackers were a constant issue, and you constantly heard about it. The game's Source 1 engine limited the gameplay changes, features, and graphical improvements that could have been made. For a game that makes billions of dollars each year from cases, there was really just complete silence for a while on mostly anything except for more ways to spend money and a few community maps here and there. And then this bombshell happened on March 22nd, 2023. This was the biggest Counter-Strike news in 10 years. A whole quote-unquote new Counter-Strike game in Source 2. CS2 players have been begging for a port to Source 2 for years, and they were finally getting what they wanted and so much more. New features included premier ranked matchmaking getting a total overhaul with pick and ban, as well as leaderboards. Smoke grenades now being dynamic and consistent now. A new networking change called Subtick to help increase consistency. Map reworks, and the whole new visuals and audio. Even though people quickly realized that this was just an update to CSGO, it really did have enough to justify the name change. Even crazier, people would get to play it that same day with a limited technical test. Oh, how naive we were back then. So much hope in our hearts about the future of Counter-Strike. Yeah, CS2 was not that big leap forward for CS that it needed. While it definitely had some improvements to it over Go, it ultimately still feels like we are arguably in a pretty dark spot for CS2 right now, and the CS franchise as a whole. However, I kinda saw this coming from a mile away. Even at the launch, I was skeptical of CS2 and many of the decisions it was making. CS2 has been basically stagnant since it came out, with little hope for the future outside of blind belief that they have to fix it because it's Counter-Strike. How did we get to this point? And what can Valve do to get CS back to its former glory? Let's find out as we explore CS2. The biggest scam in gaming. Before we get into this, I'm a little bit sick, so if I sound a little bit weird this video, that's why. Let's start back in the beta. While it was bare bones, this was kind of expected as kinks were worked out and things were tested more and more and bugs were fixed. It started with just unranked competitive and deathmatch on Dust 2. The game modes were later expanded out to include casual, unranked wingman, and premier, and the maps were expanded to include Mirage, Nuke, Overpass, Vertigo, Ancient, Anubis, Inferno, Office, Italy, and smaller versions of Overpass, Nuke, Vertigo, and Inferno for Wingman, all added over the next few months. This was a pretty solid base for a beta until the full release comes out. They also gave the community workshop tools to start working on new content for CS2, including skins, stickers, and maps, even if the maps couldn't be uploaded yet. They also completely revamped the loadout system. Before, you used to have set loadouts with a few weapons able to be changed here and there, like the M4A4 for the M4A1 or the Deagle for the R8 revolver. Now, there was both more and less. The amount of guns you had were less, but you can now freely choose one starting pistol, 4 other pistols, 5 mid-tiers like SMGs, shotguns, and LMGs, and 5 rifles for each team. I was skeptical about this at first because I thought it limited the amount of sillier expression at lower levels with some of the lower tier guns, but I understood the reason for it. It allowed for a new dynamic of balancing where you have to choose and balance out your loadout to fit all your different needs. This could even have added a new dynamic of picking and choosing if they were to add newer weapons. You could also refund things now, which was a pretty good quality of life change. Competitive matches were also now slightly shorter, showing that they wanted to meet a middle ground between the short and long matches of CSGO Ranked. There was also a new feature where if a cheater was detected in your match, it would end early for everyone and the player would be banned. One of the more controversial changes was the removal of map-based factions, with only basic CT and T models and the paid agents being left. This was controversial as it gave the maps a lot less personality, but maybe they would add them back later. This is a lot, but all of this plus plenty of bug fixes were added between March and mid-September of 2023. And while the hype wasn't as high as it was when it first got revealed, the sentiment around the game was still pretty positive. With a few more months to a year of beta work, we could see a game that was up to CSGO standards, if not better. But on September 27th, 2023, CS2 was launched in the 1.0. With a pretty minor update that fixed bugs, started the premiere season, and made weekly drops a bit more simple, CS2 was made free to play for everyone. And more importantly, CSGO was gone. This shocked the entire community. A game that was at best 75 to 80% ready and feature complete was pushed out to replace a game that, while dated, was still much more complete than CS2 was at launch. While the very base CS2 experience was there, it really felt like that it was only a little more than the bare minimum, as there were a lot of things that didn't make their way into CS2 from CSGO. Multiple maps from competitive, wingman, and casual were gone. And not only that, whole modes were gone too. All the party games like Arms Race, Flying Scoutsman, Demolition, and Retakes were gone. And the big battle royale they spent a bunch of time working on earlier in the decade, Danger Zone, was gone too. You can say that most of these modes weren't played, but can you really extend that logic to like Arms Race and Retakes? Workshop maps still couldn't be played, and you couldn't even host private matches with your friends. Were you one of the few people that played on Mac? Well, f you. No more Counter-Strike for you. Lots of the commands like left hand disappeared, and smaller things were gone as well, like clan tags. Unranked matchmaking was gone too, so play competitive or casual or nothing. While community stuff like Surf, bhop, and other servers were already put down by Go, CS2 was the death knell for it, with breaking server hosting, plugins, and surfing in general. These things may have been tiny if it was just one or two, but altogether it paints the picture of a rushed release. With the gameplay and networking of the game itself at launch being kinda shoddy, most people agreed that it was the case too. While most people agreed that it was rushed in some form, the reason why was obviously never said or explained. Not to mention why it had to completely replace CSGO. The most obvious reason is that they promised it would come out in summer of 2023, and they dropped it on literally the last day of summer. I feel like this is a strange excuse though, as most people would understand a delay if the game wasn't ready yet. Another reason could be the stop the split of a player base between the beta of CS2 and CSGO, and even after CS2 launches. But even then, most people would just play the new game just to play the new thing. But realistically, it's probably because the skin's transferring over. Either way, the launch was pretty botched. But even then, some people wrote it off because the launch of CSGO was worse. The thing is, that was in 2013. It's currently 2023. We should have some better standards. And CSGO also didn't delete the game before. Anyone that enjoyed anything that was removed was shit out of luck outside of a barely held together, unsupported branch of CS2 that had the last version of CSGO that who knows when it would be removed. Even then though, the sky wasn't completely falling. There was plenty of time to fix things after launch. So let's get into that stuff. Before then, if you could like and subscribe, I would appreciate it. Unfortunately, unlike Valve, I can't support myself with child gambling. Outside of bug fix patches, there really wasn't any major updates for quite a while. The biggest thing that was added within the first month was the ability to now host and upload workshop maps, something that should have been there at launch. You still couldn't play them with your friends though, and then it was... yeah. Until February, outside of bug fixes and small changes, there was nothing. It's okay. Valve is an indie company, and I'm sure the next major update would fix everything. February had the first major update in CS2 history, and it brought light to everything. A light on the fact that this game might be cooked. It added Arms Race back, a mode that was already in CSGO, which was nice, but it only had 2 maps that were remakes from Go, Baggage and Shoots. The only other major and huge quotations gameplay change was reworking the Zeus to have a cooldown instead of being one and done. That's it. But you know what they did add? Lots of ways for them to make money. A new music hitbox, a new sticker capsule with the change to allow you to place stickers wherever you want now. And more importantly, the first new case of CS2, the Kilowatt case, fresh with a new knife. This would start a common theme of CS2 updates, adding a feature that can honestly be considered the bare minimum, just so they can add tons of ways for them to make money. Hell, even the Zeus change was done because they added skins for it. After this update, my hope was waning, but it was still there for this game. As much hating as I've done so far in this video, I still loved CSGO, and I want Counter-Strike 2 to be a good game. So I held on hope. There was just minor stuff for a while after that, In March, they added the pass for the Copenhagen Major, but I can't even really be mad at that because it's expected and the money goes towards esports. In April, they quote-unquote added Overwatch, but I don't know a single person who's gotten access to it, so I can't really comment. Oh yeah, we finally got to April of 2024, by the way. Half a year. And they finally had the ability to play private matches with your friends. Jesus Christ. Once we get to May, there's some balancing changes to the M4A1 and incendiary grenades. It doesn't seem like a lot, but remember the recurring theme of the updates. In this update, they added the ability to rent every item in the kilowatt case for a week instead of opening it with a key. This is stupid as you're paying for skins you don't even own, but this was just another thing added to the concerning pattern of money first, content later. In June, we got 2 new community wingman maps, 2 new community maps, and the classic map Pool Day added to Arms Race. You know what's sad? This was probably the most excited I've been about a CS2 update. It was new content to play, even though it was basically the equivalent of a modern day TF2 update. Keep in mind, this game makes billions of dollars every year, by the way. Even though it wasn't much, there was at least something happening every month. We couldn't even keep that up. The next major update came at the beginning of October. You know what it was? The Armory update. For me personally, this is the point I just completely gave up hope. CS2 wasn't going to get any better. There wasn't even any content in this update, and they didn't even really try to hide it. The only things added were sticker scraping changes, stupid charms for your guns, and the Armory. Remember how beloved operations are and how they mix both tons of new content and things to do with skins you could unlock and earn? Valve saw people asking for them back and took out all the stuff that wasn't just giving them money. You earn stars from playing the game, and you can use those to buy one expensive limited time item and or gamble on shitty collections or charms. Or better yet, just buy cases you have to give them more money to open. This was the 1-year anniversary of the game being out. Do this with any other game, the players are rioting. Destiny 2 fans are getting more than this right now in a few months and in their darkest period than CS2 got in a whole year, and their YouTubers are looking for new careers. While I gave up hope, that didn't stop the slow grind of updates, as slow as they were. A month later, there was another major update that added Train, changed a bit on Overpass, and added some new community maps. I'll give them a credit even though it was just another returning map. It was reworked a good bit, and there was no things to buy in this update. I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I didn't even want to play on the map either because it performed the worst when it came out for me, and I have no idea if that's because of the fancy rain you can't turn off. There wasn't a major update for the rest of the year, but that was understandable as the major was going on and you don't want to change anything super significantly. So hopefully that means there's a bigger update in store for the beginning of 2025. At the end of January, they changed the premiere season after a year of the game being out, and changed a few weapon prices. Yes, that's it. Like, do I even need to say anything anymore? In March, all they really did was refresh the Armory and weekly drops. We get to May. It's been 5 months, and what's the next big update? They had a single weekly mission that gives you a little extra XP and a community map refresh. If you don't play CS, you might think I'm like exaggerating or purposely putting CS2 down at this point, but no, this is legitimately how little CS2 is getting at this point. A single weekly quest in 5 months. At the end of the month too, there was another major starting, so time for another content drought. But let's be honest, what is a content drought to a player base that doesn't even know what water is anymore? July comes, only a season refresh and some small balance changes to the MP9 and CT economy. But a few days after, we get them starting to change most of the animations to the Anim Graph 2 system. But half of them were broken when they came out because what even is QA testing anymore? August comes and we get nighttime versions of Ancient and Shoots, a new music kit case to buy, and an Armory refresh. You have to wonder if they didn't just switch the development to AI and move all the real people to Deadlock. In September, the community and scripting scene actually got a bone thrown at them. CS Script, which allowed for basically JavaScript functionality in the game. This allowed for some really cool stuff to be done in game, as shown through their own test map they made. They also gave each grenade unique sounds, which is cool. But, always remember the theme. The big thing with this update was a new case, the Genesis Uplink Terminal. Cases are all the thrill of gambling. $2.50 can turn into hundreds of dollars with the right luck. Terminals change the game. You open it for free, roll 5 times, and if you see something you like, you can buy it. It's a good idea on paper, even if it falls into the giving Valve more money thing. It would be cool to open a covert and see the ability to buy a nice looking skin for a few bones instead of having to sell your liver in order to get one. I thought that, until I saw the prices. Oh my god. They want you to pay them over $1,000 for a shitty M4 skin. I'm losing my mind. They were charging so much, people couldn't even get that in their Steam account before the offer expired. You can't even get knives or gloves either. Even worse in this update somehow is that they added loadout viewing and spectating. Why is this worse than arguably the worst case they've ever released? Because it shows us why they changed it in the first place. It isn't to have dynamic weapon balancing, it isn't to add new guns to keep the game fresh, it's just to show off skins. Then in October, there was one more major update before I wrote this video. Retakes. Yet another returning mode from CSGO. Whoop-de-doo. And for one last time, I don't even need to say it. The biggest part of the update was them adding the ability to trade up for knives and gloves now. Yet another way to gamble in this goddamn game. When you're looking at all these updates individually, it seems like incremental progress, but putting it all together, it just looks even worse. It's been 2 years and all we've gotten is 2 returning game modes, 1 returning map, and skins. The CS2 beta never ended. It isn't even much better than Go, if you can even say that. Cheating's still an issue, and there's still no content or reason to play the game. And there's still no communication with the community outside of a snarky Twitter manager who probably cares more about Deadlock at this point. There was so much potential for new and exciting things with the port to Source 2. New and revamped game modes, new guns, new maps, hell, even just a better feeling game than CSGO. But there's been nothing. My mom asked me to do the dishes. I yelled, CS2. She knew they were washed. If CS2 was just a bad game, I still might have made a video on it like this, but that would be it. I might have just ended it here with some potential things I want to see and how it can be improved. But I feel like I have to go into the main thing that perplexes me about CS2. This is for no one. Whether you're a competitive player, a skin trader, or a casual player, you're being screwed over. To start with competitive, I'm not going to act like I'm anything outside of a high Gold Nova peak, but I know players who are much better than me, so I'll let them do the talking. My friend Nitro feels a disconnect from the experience because of stagnation from a developer standpoint, despite CS2 promising faster development and more capacity from the dev team. Premier feels like it has no incentive to climb because you're just going to go against cheaters. This was even more the case back when it came out, where the entire top leaderboards were filled with cheaters. He also feels that competitive just feels like unranked now because the real competition just flocks to Premier. Aurori, someone a bit more positive on the game and its competitive experience, still has his gripes as well, with map ranks showing a lack of skill progression or even much logical sense to them, as well as a general stagnation to the meta and balance of the game. He isn't even asking for a complete overhaul either, just some tweaks to make some of the less powerful guns actually be viable. Hamzy, a longtime veteran of CS, brought a mixed perspective to everything. He did preface with the fact that CSGO ranked used to be a joke, and a mess of undeserving ranks before 2015, until ranks were changed and moved around. After that, things were pretty solid for a while, where it was in a good spot of both accuracy and a fun challenge. In comparison, it feels like the map-based rank system allows higher skilled players to easily switch between map to map and stomp on lower players, and which makes the actual rank distribution all out of whack. Premier solo queue is miserable, and anyone not in a 5 stack will have insane rating variance, and the resets of it every season exacerbate this problem. He also said that there's no easy fix to matchmaking, as it's inherently flawed, with some regions and ranks having low player counts and cheaters naturally rising to the top. While the responses I got were mixed, and it was a small sample set, this reflects a lot of the issues with matchmaking and trying to get better you hear all the time from the community. Not to mention, there's been tons of issues with cheaters in Tier 2 Pro CS and lower ranks of Organized CS. Why would anyone trying to go super competitive or even pro choose CS2 over something like Valorant or Fortnite, where that goal seems a lot more attainable for someone with that dream? For people that care about skins, I can't lie, I don't feel that bad. It's one step away from the pictures of monkeys people wanted to act like were valuable a few years ago. I won't go too hard on them though, since they're basically the only reason Valve still updates this game. I just don't really see why this game is good for any person that actually cares about skins, whether you have a few bucks to spend or thousands. A lot of higher tier skin traders and buyers have been screwed over by lots of changes that make it harder to trade and buy on external sites, like trade reversals. After the recent CS crash, a lot of CS traders panic sold a lot of their inventory. And after the inevitable bounce back, a lot of the traders just reversed their trades and took all their items back now that they realized that they weren't going to absolutely crash. But way more importantly, the average player has basically been completely priced out of them for the most part. When the last update happened that allowed trading up for knives and gloves, A lot of people celebrated that skin traders were finally getting screwed over, and people would finally be able to buy knives. I saw through this almost immediately. It was just going to kill the low end of the market. And look what happened. The market went almost all the way back up. Knives are still more expensive than even the most pricey of full games. And now nice looking play skins at a decent price are reduced significantly, if not dead. A lot of the changes like the new trade ups, the armory, the terminals, and case rentals all not only give more things to buy, but they also show a push from Valve to get most of their money in the skins market to them. One of the biggest things that made CS skins cool and unique was the fact that most of the money went player to player, but it seems like even that is slowly being reduced as time goes on in CS2. Somehow Valve has made skins be the main focus of the game, while still screwing the people over that care about it. But neither of those communities are really what I'm most associated with. I want to play CS2 kinda casually. I know, kill me. But I feel like out of any community here, this one was basically completely left out to dry. The only party game that ever returned was Arms Race, basically at its bare minimum, and everything else is gone. Community servers and content in general have been completely screwed over by CS2. It's even more hidden from the player, and the server browser in game is just still comically broken. Game modes like Surf have been broken almost until I made this video, and with CS2, all of the plugins and content that worked so well on CSGO had to be remade from the ground up with little help or warnings from Valve. But I think the worst thing of all is that this community, even if Valve doesn't care about it, tried to make their own bubble. Projects like Classic Offensive and CS Legacy tried to revive the old school community spirit of Counter-Strike 1.6 and Source in more ways than one. How did Valve respond? Shutting them both down. Classic Offensive got told to not use CSGO and instead port it to CS2, which would be basically impossible, or switch to using Source's SDK. What makes that even funnier is CS Legacy made their game in Source's SDK, but Valve just didn't want them using the Counter-Strike IP. Look, Nintendo sucks, but at least you know upfront that they're gonna hate your fan project. A good portion of Valve's legacy is held up by fan creations and mods they took on and made into huge phenomenons. But Counter-Strike is dead in that front, unless you want to make them virtual gun skins for their online casino. So who is CS2 for? Who even knows at this point? This all gets worse when you compare it to its competition. Hate on Valorant as much as you want from a gameplay perspective, but you certainly can't say they haven't had support on at least the competitive and content front. There's been 12 maps added since launch, multiple new game modes, tons of new agents, and a healthy competitive scene. You can say the agents add too much bloat to the game, but even removing those, Valorant has smoked CS2's output. But let's take a look at more than just the market it's in. Let's take a look at major updates marketed as sequels and compare their post-launch to CS2. Fortnite started this trend with Fortnite Chapter 2 and have been doing this once a year since, obviously smoking the content output of CS2. That's probably not a fair comparison since it's probably the biggest free-to-play game in the world, so let's go smaller. And I have my own gripes with Fortnite, but you can watch that video after this one. Overwatch 2. Despite having a disastrous launch that still gives the game a negative shadow to this day, it has done more in that time to earn goodwill than CS2. On top of a significant amount of maps and characters, they also added an entire new mode that turns it into a MOBA-like game, and that mode is getting significant support too. If you're into skins, it's better than CS as well, at least for the average player. You can't trade them, but free players have loot boxes, events, and a really fair battle pass to get stuff from. I think we can at least agree that most people see CS as a more acclaimed game than Overwatch, so that makes it sad that CS can't even keep up with like 20% of Overwatch. So let's get even lower. Rainbow Six Siege X. While that has been a well-documented disaster, there's at least something to look forward to since there's a roadmap. It's in a bad spot with less content than it's ever had, but at least their players have anything to look forward to. CS has never had a roadmap. CS2 can't even do that or match Siege X in content. I want to clarify again that despite me going in on Valve and CS in this video, it's because the base of it is really good and has the potential to be the best FPS on the market. The worst thing is that after I'm done making this video, the only thing I'll probably feel is complete apathy, because it really doesn't feel like things are going to change. And that really lies on who's behind it all. Valve. Valve still makes some cool and good things like most of Steam, the Steam Deck, and Half-Life Alyx, but The company that loved their community and were a small dev team making groundbreaking games is gone, man. Gaben isn't even there. He's enjoying his 7 different yachts he got off his 12-year-old gambling empire and making a store, not games. The general gaming collective needs to stop babying Valve and acting like they aren't another gaming megacorp, even if they don't reach the lows of an EA or Activision. Counter-Strike makes them over $1 billion each year. The players deserve better. If the players look over the fence to Deadlock, you can literally see that they can do better. They just refuse to do so for anything that isn't their pet passion project. Being able to work on whatever you want at Valve is cool and cute, but if you're going to ignore projects you have, then you can remove the microtransactions. You know that'll never happen at this point though. Look at TF2. What do we even expect at this point? This has been Valve forever. Even before CS2 came out, they love to just have complete silence and leave their fans waiting and starving. And who can blame them? The fans eat it right up. I appreciate Valve listening to technical feedback when it's given properly, but it feels like anything outside of that falls on deaf ears. I could leave a list of things I'd like to see added or changed, but what's the point? It's not happening, buddy. That's why I call CS2 the biggest scam in gaming. Because its release promised potential we've never seen from the franchise before. But we never left that drought of CSGO. It just looks shinier and has more entries in the store. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're on mobile, hit the hype thing. The last video I asked this on went nuclear, so I guess it helps a lot, I think. How do you feel about CS2? Do you think I went too hard on it, or not hard enough? Special thanks to Master Necro, Nico, Max, Asinotis, and A19 for supporting me on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Links below that and my Discord if you want to be extra special and help out even more for just $1 a month. My name is Chaos for Real, and I don't even have a funny bit for this one. Look up how to play Classic Offensive and go do it. Don't let Valve determine your fun with CS.